Shouldn't that everybody know? These two
Every
things?
single person in the horse world needs to know that.
That really convinced me to say, this is crazy. This has to stop.
Have you ever thought about what your saddle is really saying to your horse? Is it telling a story of trust and comfort, or one of pain and betrayal? The wrong saddle can do more than make your horse uncomfortable. It can change how they move, how they behave, and even how they trust you. Today we're joined by Jochen Schleese, the world's leading expert on Saddlefit and founder of Saddlefit for Life. Jochen has made it his mission to stop horses from suffering in silence and to help riders unlock balance and connection like never before. What makes Jochen so unique is how he's changing the conversation, not just about the horse's needs, but yours as well. He's one of the first to call out how saddles designed for male anatomy leave female riders in pain and frustration, and he's here to share his expertise and transform how we think about saddle fit. In this episode, we'll talk about how to spot the signs of a bad fit, what most people get wrong about saddles, and practical steps you can take right now to improve comfort, performance, and trust with your horse. But this conversation goes beyond saddle fit. It's about redefining partnership, choosing compassion over convenience, and showing up for your horse in the most fundamental way, by listening.
Jochen, welcome to the Dear Horse World podcast.
Thank you very much for having me. Glad to be here.
I'm so excited to have you on this podcast because I came across your saddles last summer. And what struck me, the first impression that I had was the experience, and the experience was the saddle fitting experience. And I never had a saddle fitting experience quite like it. It was 3 times the length of any saddle fitting experience I'd ever had. And I actually really learned a lot. And so I must admit that left quite an impression on me.
That's fantastic. You know, when I think back when I was a rider, and I was very fortunate to be sponsored. Back then, I wrote 3-day eventing for the German junior team. And I remember this, finally I made the team and I got the saddle sponsored. And then I got another sponsor. And through these years, everybody said something different, how the saddle had to fit. Well, I was just a kid back then, and I thought, okay, I guess that's the right way. And then I started to wonder because my horse behavior changed a little bit. My dad is a teacher, and he always says, the person who knows the how will always follow the person who knows the why. So I asked him, why does the saddle have to fit like this? And the answer was very disturbing. And I followed my calling, and my calling came through a not so good story. But the story was that we couldn't figure out why my horse had this intermittent lameness. And that was unfortunately many years after he's passed away. So I said to my dad, with every top team members who worked around me, how come I lose my best friend? How come after 15 years later, I find out that my saddle crippled my horse? So I made it my mission, my calling, that nobody ever should lose their best friend because of ill-fitting saddles. And that's how it started to evolve. And I asked so many people to help me, from biomechanic experts, veterinarians, osteopaths, to the stage that I said, I really need to educate the customer. And that's how it evolved in such a long evaluation. And I'm glad to hear that you learned a lot, because that's what it's all about, that we learn to protect our loved ones, our horses.
Whoa. Ooh. It made me think 2 things. One, in that saddle fitting, I learned more about my horse's back than I'd learned before, even from vets. For example, that my mare's wither moves a lot when she moves, and that horse's withers move at there needs to be a lot of space for her because she has quite a dynamic wither. I didn't even know that was a thing. And the second thing it makes me think of when I hear this origin story is there is many people who believe that your gift to the world is the very thing that has broken your heart.
Yes. Yes, unfortunately, it's true.
That, and I really relate to you in that, because the why I do what I do is really birthed out of heartbreak. It's out of a pain so uncomfortable that you have to do something about it. And it sounds like that heartbreak with your horse, it birthed something beautiful.
Yeah. See, I grew up in Buenos Aires, and when I fell in love with horses as a little kid there, I thought, all I want to do is be a rider. And when we moved back to Germany, finally I had my own horse and horses. And my passion was bones, anatomy, biomechanics.
Oh, really?
And I thought I'd become a doctor. But I spent way too much time in the barn, not enough time in the books. That I don't know what I was thinking, that maybe magical, I get automatic a position in the university to become a doctor. But it was just by fluke that I had to go to night school to upgrade my grades.
Yeah.
But I kept teaching riding and riding lessons and so on and so forth. But my dad said, you're not just sitting here until you finally get your grades. Go and become and learn something. And then I became a saddle maker by fluke. And then I started to make my own saddles. And back to the story I was telling you earlier, the guilt and the pain was twice as much, because I blamed myself as a German master saddler. Shouldn't I have known that saddle is the end for my horse's well-being, life? And to this day, we are learned and taught how saddles have to be made, what material, but not how the saddle has to fit the anatomy of the rider or the horse. And that's where the miscommunication is. And that's why I decided, we really need to look deep into this. And many people, like myself, do not want to hurt their horses unintentionally. That's the last I had in mind.
Yeah.
But can you imagine as a saddle maker myself? So, and here we learn this lesson. We get formed through pain, like you were mentioning. But we also know humans don't like changes. No. They only change when they are in pain or in fear.
Yes.
And hopefully this podcast and all what I try to do, people never ever have to experience what I had to go through with my horse. And with all this technology we have today, I mean, come on, we can look each other in the face around the world with FaceTime, with WhatsApp.
Yeah.
Right? So we have for free on our phone a way that we can take measurements on the horse's back, 3-dimensional scans. It's unbelievable. And worldwide, people can help you now. So I thought, what a gift we have now in this technology that we can help our horses. And hopefully with today's session, we can educate a lot of people. And I'm excited to do this today with you.
Me too. Because I think the more I learn about all of these top riders, all of their programs, all of the success stories, all of the people who are doing it right, or the people who did it wrong and then figured out how to do it right, which is so much of what we do on Noëlle Floyd, and so much of what we do on NF Plus, and so much of what we do behind our education is really is expert-led education. And what I'm learning more and more is how the best riders in the world, who have the best horses in the world, and the ones who are doing it right at every level, are the ones who take every aspect of their horse's care into consideration. So they go deeply into the horse's nutrition. They go deeply into their horse's mental health and welfare. They go deeply into their horse's biomechanics, physical fitness, conditioning, and they go deeply into their gear, their saddle fit, their bridle fit, their bit fit. They take the time to make sure that the foundation, the health and wellness of their horse, which is the foundation of any skill building, the foundation of their house, the foundation of their partnership with their horse, is completely and totally sound. And to me, I'm starting to really recognize that saddle fitting is paramount to a healthy and happy horse.
You know, when I'm thinking back, when I started to learn to ride, I was very impatient. I wanted to bridle my own pony. And somebody showed it to me a couple of times until I'm finally graduated, not with a license, but felt comfortable to bridle my own pony. And when it came to saddle fitting, pretty much everybody in Pony Club learned the saddle can't hit the withers and how to pull the saddle pad up and how to saddle a horse. Today, we know there are 14 reflex points on the horse where it can be triggered by the saddle or by the girth. Now, I'll give you a little example. We all had hidden our funny bone as kids or adults.
Yeah.
And while we get that bang on our elbow, it tingles all the way to the pinky.
Yeah.
So if I envision to make lemon juice, so I cut a lemon, I squish it in my hand, and I squish that juice out, that's a lot of strength I need in my hand to squish that lemon. If I envision to squish a grape, like what people make wine of, between my thumb and my index, that's not a lot of pressure. It takes a little pressure, but not as much as the lemon juice. So when I learned all about these trigger points on the horse, I came across a fabulous body worker, a good friend of mine. And Jim Masterson is his name. And he talked about pressure. How to explain when he teaches pressure. He talks about lemon pressure and grape pressure. When I came across veterinarians who have further education, such as chiropractic or acupuncture, that says there's certain spots on the horse. For example, I brought this little guy here. Can I show you this?
Yes, please.
So this little guy here, she gave me this horse and says, see all these points? And says, yeah, these are the bladder meridian point, and they're all trigger points. And you say, you see this point right there? Says, yes. That's approximately where every Western saddle has a concho, or where every English saddle has a D-ring. And when the saddle pinches there with the pressure of a grape pressure, the horse's heart rate goes up artificial. No way. People always thought Jochen Schleese is from Missouri, the show me state, because I never believed anything. I said, I needed to see it.
Yeah.
Too many
the
times.
The show me state.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
And people said to me, well, how come you're so untrusting? I says, well, because I trust a lot of people with a lot of opinions. I'm done with opinions. I want to see data or scientific or something logical explained to me. So he says, here, take this heart monitor. Hold it on the horse's heart. Now press as hard as you can, like if you squish a lemon with your finger on this spot. And I pressed so hard, the horse had to actually shift a little bit, and I looked at the heart monitor, nothing. It says, go 1 inch forward. Where that spot is, I just showed you on the horse. Gentle. Please don't push the horse over. Just gentle, as if you squish a grape. I couldn't believe it. Heart rate goes up. And he said to me, you know what? I says, no, what? When a human has artificial heart rate increase, they get a lot of cortisol level in their blood. That's how we measure if we have stress. Now with an animal, but cannot run away. Horses like to run away when they're afraid or in stress. But now imagine they're tied to a post or in the cross tie. I put the saddle on. That saddle pinches on that spot. What do you think happens?
The horse runs away.
Can't run away.
Or go up or down or backwards or sideways.
Or he swishes with the tail, or he bites you in your girth. Right? He's talking to you. But let's say you haven't paid attention to those very obvious signs.
Or you think that the sign is from something else. Like my horses, we get a lot of personification of horses. Or my horse is being a jerk, right?
He doesn't like sun.
Or he doesn't like these cross ties, or he doesn't like when I brush him or whatever. Yeah, there's a lot of that.
See, and I wanted to know what's so special about this. Yeah, he says when the horse has stress, when the heart rate is artificial up, how do they show it? In their signs? But what about the vitals? He says the acid reduces, when they eat a lot, they create that saliva that reduces the colics or ulcers. A lot of horses have ulcers or colics unnecessary. So don't create unnecessary pressure on those long meridian points what I just showed you. I never knew that.
So you're saying that that pressure point, super simple pressure point, causes an increase in the heart rate.
Yes.
With a grape level pressure.
Yes.
That increase in heart rate increases cortisol, and that increase in cortisol increases the acid production in their stomach.
What leads to ulcers, colics.
or colic.
Who wants that? From a lunging single, vaulting single saddle. Why? Why do we not know this? And that's just 1 out of 14 on each side.
1 out of 14 on one side pressure points on the horse's back.
Yes. I'll give you another one. Everybody knows that one. How do I get a kitten to go numb? I grab her by the scruff, lift her up, and the kitten is numb. We've all seen it.
Yeah.
Bears, dogs, when they carry their little pups.
Yeah.
What do they do in the wild when horses bite each other? They go for the lower legs, and let me show you here. There's this nerve you can see going, all that yellow here.
Yeah.
So when stallion bites here, okay, that hurts. When they grab him here, that hurts. But if the other stallion has the other stallion on the scruff, on the wither area, that fires through the cranial nerve 11, through the brachial plexus, the nervous system. He gives up. Okay, you can have the girls. I'm out of here.
Whoa. And I've seen that. I've actually seen that in photos and video of wild stallions fighting. Is they're going for the wither, and I've never understood why.
Where else do they go to this day after 35 million years? When the mare is in season, where does the stallion do?
Oh, wow. They bite her on the wither.
And you know what it does? Watch this. When he bites her here, it pulls the back muscle together. So all these bones cut, touch, kissing spine.
Yeah.
That hurts. Pelvis rotates open. He breathes her. This is a nerve. This is something what's in there since 35 million years.
Whoa.
Right. And that wither cup, okay, we call that the triangle. And you just made a funny sound. You said, whoa.
Yeah, I'm just like, my brain is exploding.
Here. See the skin here between your hand and this little spot?
Yeah, like hold it up.
So what do cowboys do when they teach young horses? They press with the hand and go, whoa, that little pressure, grape pressure. Stallion's bite is way more than grape. It's triple.
Yeah. It's
triple lemon.
Yeah.
That means, I got to slow down. So what if I tell you that many saddles, from racing to pleasure riding saddles, hit this? That means you have to ride for 20 minutes to make that nerve numb. So here I am, have 6 horses to ride, and if my saddle doesn't fit, I wasted 2 hours of my precious time to ride the horses numb first before I get the horses back up.
Wow.
Isn't that something, shouldn't that everybody know? These two things?
Every single person in the horse world needs to know that.
I always say to people, if you don't remember any of those 14 points, please remember the one what since 35 million years there.
Yeah.
And remember the one what only causes you a lot of stress because your horse is in stress, the long meridian point. That really convinced me to say, this is crazy. Right? This has to stop. And this is why many, many companies to this day, I mean, you and I, we rode jumpers, eventing. How many bits did we had? Many. Right? Because it's a metal piece and a soft tissue mouth to get the best result.
Yes.
There's another piece.
And also you didn't stick with one bit for the whole length of time.
There you go.
You would never, ever ride the same horse in the same bit their whole life.
So we get that. We also get no hoof, no horse.
Yeah.
Like how important it is to have the good shoeing.
Yes.
But why do so many people ignore the metal, the third piece of metal on the horse's body? That's the metal piece. I brought a saddle tree here. Okay, so that's on an English side. See that metal piece right there?
Yeah.
And there's another one on the bottom.
Yeah.
Okay, so this bracket here is installed so it doesn't crush the withers.
Yes.
Okay, you said something beautiful a couple of minutes ago, how the withers is mobile. So I brought this long spinal processes from the withers. So when the horse walks, this actually goes this way. It moves. Yeah. Right? That's what you learned with your saddle.
And do some horses move more than others?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And especially the Baroque horses, I understand you have Andalusians.
I have an Andalusian and I have an Appaloosa mare. And what I learned and what I mentioned before we started recording for those who are listening was one of the most profound things that I learned from my saddle fitting experience with Schleese was that my mare's wither moves a lot when she moves.
That's right.
And like very high on the scale of movement.
Yeah.
So it's very vital that she have space. And she's also built a bit downhill.
Yeah.
So this is also important that there's not pressure from behind and there's not pressure on the sides on her wither.
Yeah. See, what I don't understand, we have been with horses for so many years, for thousands of years. And if you look at the army saddle, the Western saddle, or the packing saddle, they never deviated from the get away from that withers. And not just the top, the side. I brought half a tree over here. Here's a half a Western tree.
Yes.
All right, you see the fork and you see the bars.
Yes.
Look at the distance from my thumb to my index finger. See, that's minimum 4 to 5 inches.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if you buy one from India, from South America, from North America. It's always the same because that distance, all these areas, is to free up the wither cup.
Yeah.
How many saddles are out there today where it's just 1 or 2?
It's scary.
Too narrow.
Yeah.
Okay. And we use this in certain sport to make the horse hollow, bridging, purposely going upwards, downwards, like in a upside down frame.
Yes.
And we don't want to pinpoint a specific breed or specific industry out.
Yeah.
But when I talk about an industry where time is money, jumper, eventer, racing.
Yeah.
If I have a little Apple Watch for horses, what shows you the stride, the heart rate, the distance, compare how does this horse compete with his time right now if he would go on Kentucky Derby. Right? I have all this technology. All I have to do is put him in the saddle, what stays off the wither cup and off the long meridian point.
Yeah.
The trainer doesn't care what brand it is.
Yeah.
They just look at the stopwatch, says, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
He has a good day today. He says, put the other saddle on.
Yeah.
Oh, well, he's the second time now, right? He's slower, right? Put the other one back on. Sometimes we really have to get hit with a 2x4 in front of your head to see it.
Yeah.
So when you're in an industry where time is money, they don't care what brand it is. If you're a veterinarian, a professor who understand physiology, biomechanics of the horse, and you say, if you hit the horse with the hammer on the cannon bone, not so good. You know what's happening. But to this day, bad example. Back to the back maybe. If I do something and hit those trigger points on the back, no university, no professor, no person will argue, that will hurt. If you go on the spinal nerves, they get very weak in the back. And then you start injecting SI and maybe they start from the hocks. But if you don't want it, stay off the spinal points. So if we know all this, please, why has the industry, the saddle making industry, not listened to what is now on paper, in articles, everywhere, to the States, where they call it the pain scale for horses. So we know the pain scale for horses.
Yeah.
And I have a theory.
Okay, let's hear it.
It's kind of like, why do we want to heal people? A sick person, the pharmaceutical company makes way more money with the sick person versus than the healthy person.
Yeah.
I sell way more saddles if this is not quite going as well.
So that's a scary thought.
It's a scary thought.
That's a scary thought.
But if we live in an industry in North America, not Mexico, just Canada and the States, of $123 billion, anything that has to do with horses, not just saddles or trailers. You can imagine how much saddle selling is a big industry here. Only when you have pain, we are willing to change. And I hope our listeners don't go through saddle fitting pain themselves or the horse and go through maybe the scientific side. They know a little bit about the veterinarians, the physiotherapists, the gym masters. Maybe they know a little bit more about the health of the horse. So why can we as a saddle makers or saddle salespeople not listen to them a little bit more?
It makes me think too that we, as especially in the sports side of things, we're very quick and easy and comfortable injecting horses in a variety of different areas that are highly likely to develop arthritis, or areas of pressure like the spine, like the cervical spine, like the lumbar spine. They have hocks, stifles. These are common areas that we inject, right? So we have no problem spending thousands of dollars to do that. And yet I would argue that to spend an extra couple $100 to get a second opinion on your saddle fit, or to get your saddle refitted, might actually save you the thousands of dollars that you might have to inject in your horse's spine because they've developed kissing spine because they have atrophy in their back or whatever. Like, it's so interesting. We don't take into consideration all the preventative that we can do, maybe because we don't know. And to be fair, you know, I didn't know this. And I feel like I should have, but I didn't.
And that's why I do what I do, you know, because I know exactly what I don't know. I know I can't fly a plane. I know I can't operate, but I know how to make a saddle. And I always listen to my grandmother who says, play with the older kids, they know more. So
that's a great piece of advice.
And I surrounded myself with all these people who could give me an answer. Says, if I press on the horse's spine here, which is 1 inch behind where the wither ends into the horse's spine, why does the tongue come out? I want to know what has that to do. How many horses do we have who have tongue issues?
Yes.
Or when I says, how come that the horse flicks with the tail if I hit this spot? It's all in the area where the saddle sits.
Yes.
Why does the horse all of a sudden pushes her butt out?
Yeah.
As a ride, I want the horse off the forehand. I want to clear the pole. I want to have the horse light on the forehand.
Yes, yes.
So if I hit trigger points, and I can only refer to all our listeners here, hit your funny bone, you will make a funny face. That's why it's funny bone. Because it's not funny at all to hit it, right?
No, you just make a funny face.
Why does the doctor hit your knee when he checks for your reflex? He wants to see if the reflex still goes, right? So think about those spots. And once I learned that, I said, I'm on a mission. Every person, you mentioned in the beginning of the session, there got to be a basis. Wouldn't it be cool, like we learned as a kindergarten, in riding school, how to bridle our horses and how to put a saddle on? If we take a little piece of chalk and learn where those 14 points are, it doesn't matter what saddle it is, what sport you ride, what girth you have, just avoid them. So that's my dream, that every rider knows where these 14 points are on each side of the horse.
I think we should make that our mission.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, I think we should make that our mission. I think that should be one of our big takeaways out of this episode, is that we make those 14 points as we can do it. I think we can make that happen, Jochen. I think we can.
Super. I'm all excited.
Okay, so on that note, this is a No Stupid Questions episode where we get to actually, not only do I get to ask you my questions, but our members on NF Plus get to ask you our questions.
Excited.
Yeah. So in this jar, we always pull all from the questions that everyone wants to ask about saddle fitting.
Okay.
And what I love about this episode is, or one of the structure of the episode is that the idea is really that you can ask any question and that no question is stupid.
No. That's...
Okay. First question is, what are the biggest signs a saddle doesn't fit properly for both the horse and the rider? And how can riders spot them early?
Okay. So I like to arm every rider with a pencil or a pen such as this one. See how the pen has a uniform thickness?
Yeah.
So if you have a Western saddle or English saddle, the trick works the same.
Okay.
Put the saddle on the horse where you normally would girth it up, but do not have a saddle pad on it, no Western pad or no English pad.
Okay.
No girth, no rider. Just put it loose on where you would girth it up.
Okay.
Then you take the pencil and you put it underneath the pommel or the swell and let it loose.
Put under the what?
The swell, the fork. Here's the horse.
Yeah.
Put it right there.
Oh, okay.
So here's the withers, right?
Yeah.
Let it loose.
Yeah.
That pen needs to fall 4 inches down on each side.
4 inches down on each side.
Yes.
Okay.
So that is where you can tell if the tree is too narrow or the angle doesn't fit. that will pinch.
Whoa, that's a good trick.
It's a very easy trick.
Yeah,
So
anyone can do that.
anybody can do it.
Okay.
So if you say, oh, I don't want to let the pen loose, then see if you guide the pen, does it slide under the first D-ring on the Western saddle, English saddle, sorry, or under the first concho on the Western saddle.
Okay.
So that's how you can see if the saddle fits the horse. That's the worst point of the 14 points.
Okay.
So there's many, many more.
Mm.
But this question, I think, had two questions. One
Yes.
was for the horse and one was
for the rider.
For the rider, even if you don't ride with jeans, for testing, let's say you really like the saddle, it's used, it's on the market, it's in the tack shop, have a pair of jeans on. Because the jeans have this nasty seam in the crotch.
Mm-hmm.
And you should sit on the saddle, no fenders, no stirrups,
Mm-hmm.
let your leg hang and lean back and forth. And you should not feel the seam in the crotch. And you should also not hit the front part of your pubic symphysis. So here's a pelvis of a female. All our humans have vertebrae.
Yeah.
And you see this, these are the disc.
Yeah.
And when they form these curves, they're either bigger here and shorter there, but they're always flat.
Yes.
So this is how the pelvis on the woman is flat in space. Now, if I put there on a table, you see how these pubic branches are all flat?
Yes.
See, it's still level.
Yes.
You see how low this is in the front?
Yes.
That's your typical female pelvis. How can I tell? Well, I'm not a doctor, but I'm told a birth channel only exists in the female pelvis.
Right.
They have straight pubic branches,
Mm-hmm.
shorter tailbone. I mean, this little coccyx got broken off, but it's very short.
Yeah.
For the baby's head to come through.
Of
Do you
course.
mind just holding it there
Yeah.
and make sure it's nice and level?
Yeah.
Now let's bring him in. So if I hold this level, look how high this is here. How
Wow,
they
they're
don't touch,
completely different.
right? So obviously, if you're sitting on a saddle
Yeah.
as a woman, what's made for a man, your seam will cut right in your crotch. You will not be able to do this. The first thing I learned as a saddle maker in 1978 was, my master saddler says, rebuild the withers in the crotch area of the saddle. I says, I'm sorry, what? And he said to me, you are the dumbest apprentice ever. You ask so many questions. And I said, my daddy said there is no dumb question, only stupid answers.
Thank you.
So here is how we learned how to make a male saddle. See how there is a peak in the front?
Yeah.
So the reason there is one, so sorry to be so rude, I don't know else how to say
Please
it.
don't
So
be
the
worried.
male's part gets pushed to the left or the right. No male want to crush his male parts in the crotch.
Is that the reason why?
Yes, you built this peak.
Okay.
There's no
I
way.
guarantee you there's so many of us. I'm going to say, and I'm the first to admit this, there's so many of us, I'm sure, that are listening that did not know that's why there's a peak, so that the male parts either fall on the left or side of the saddle.
We had to create that divider, right? So when he sits on, there is no way I will ever hit the front.
What?
And then you see how our hip sockets are?
Yeah.
The hip sockets are in the center of the pelvis, and I can literally ride with a crotch or fork seat, which means for my spine, I can put my thigh straight down or back. I don't get a hip cramp
Yeah.
because I don't have the hip shelf. Look at this area and watch the hip shelf on the lady. This is the hip shelf. You won't find that on a male's pelvis, this little bone.
Okay, so we need to show this. I want to show this on the camera.
So
really.
this little unit here, see that?
Yeah.
Can you see that? So that is non-existing.
Can we see that
dog.
on camera?
So right here, where my fingers is where that ligament comes out. Now, if I force you, how many rides have I taken their thigh and moved that back?
Yeah.
And they say,
Yeah.
don't be such a baby. Learn to ride or you're not riding with me anymore. How many kids did I yell at it? I don't feel that, right? So all these riding instructors who deform, cause long-term damage, and this is why we have neurological issues, as well as long-term damage on riders written by medical doctors, books. So watch this. Now she sits on it. Pubic symphysis is free, right? Look how far she leans back. By the time she sits properly, now, her seat bones are not in the saddle. So she goes back to where the saddle really feels uncomfortable because the narrow part is here where the leg goes gone. She says, that hurts. And I'm yelling with her because her leg position is so horrible. So I'm trying as a riding instructor to make a form. So the female saddle looks completely different. That's how I made my money in 1996. I sold it to the bicycle company. That's when the bicycle...
Yes. No,
I did so.
You sold the female... Yes. I have a female bike seat.
There you go.
Right? Everyone who's listening, if you all have bikes, you need to get a female-specific bike seat. And it doesn't even matter if you're just biking down to the coffee shop because it will like change your life. It will really change your life. But of course, I had a female-specific bike seat, but I've never had a female-specific saddle.
There you go.
Oh my God.
So now look at her. There's nothing but hits the crotch. Look at this. She's finely level the way she walks all day long.
Yeah.
And there's no peak because we have the luxury to put our parts left or right. Women's parts are inside. You can't push them away. So when I read from Dr. James Warson the book, Chronic Bladder and Kidney Infection from a saddle for women, are you kidding me? Lower back problems? How many Olympians
have lower back problems?
Have
L4, You're telling L5. Me that if you have a poor fitting saddle, you could have a UTI?
Yes. Not my words. These are written black on white by Dr. James Warson. Also hip and knee problems, massive. Not when you're a little kid. You're eager to bone and ride. No matter what doctors or the instructors say, you do whatever you want just to stay on the horse,
Of course, yeah.
They come back. So the guys hate these saddles.
Wow.
Why? Because now nothing divides me. And I always hit myself.
Okay.
And I find the saddle too wide in the back because I don't have wide-bearing seat bones. There is no reason I need a pelvis to bear a child. So if I want to sit on support, I got to put it here. And back to the question, how can I tell if I'm a right saddle? If a guy sits in the female saddle, he will hate it because he doesn't feel the divider. He will always hurt himself. He says, I can't even walk on the horse, never mind sitting trot.
Okay.
There's no way a guy
So that's a very clear, easy way for men to figure out
it's
if it's
kind of like the shoe analysis.
Yeah.
Where the woman sits and he says, oh my God, I don't get a Charlie horse. I don't got a hip pain. My toe is forward. But I can roll back and forth. I don't feel the seam. That's how you know.
So
that's so clear.
Because let's take the female.
Right here.
You have the female one. Okay.
Right. So I have contact on my seat bones. This is flat and there's nothing coming into me.
Yeah. Because you've created, but this is so fascinating because now that you mentioned the female designed bike seat, it makes perfect sense because this part of the seat is flatter to allow for where our seat bones, because our seat bones, and this was also something that I did when we did the saddle fitting, is she actually measured where my seat bones were.
That's right.
And no one had ever done that, Jochen. Yeah. No one.
See, when I grew up, I was taught by a cavalry officer. This tiny little guy, 90 years old, man, could that guy yell. But he always yelled at us. You get off the reins, you ride your horse from your seat.
Yeah.
And to this day, in Vienna, 400-year-old school, you are on the lunch line for a year to learn the proper seat. Before you're allowed to touch the reins. So we all learned as riders, my weight shifting, my weight implication. You just mentioned, be in the center, proper spot.
Be in the center of your horse's balance, point of balance. Right? It's
so
vital.
How can you do that if you have two bone structures, the bone structure of your pelvis and the bone structure of the saddle called the tree, fight each other? It's kind of you riding with a bit what's way too small and the blood is gushing out of the mouth and you say, I'm just going to try a little harder to be less hard with my hands. Meanwhile, the bit is chewing the tongue off. Something like this, ridiculous.
Wow.
That's for me, in today's society, we got to listen to the experts. And I'm not the expert. I just listened to a gynecologist who came to my little shop back when I started in 86.
Yeah.
He says, what are you doing? He says, I'm making saddles. Who are you? Well, I'm the gynecologist who happens to have, one of my patients is the Olympic rider so-and-so. I don't want to name any names here.
Yeah.
And she says she will buy whatever saddle, but everywhere she rides, she's either in the share seat or I tell her she should stop riding. Otherwise, this can be long-term damage and not just chronic bladder and kidney infection. We're talking about nasty cell growth. So I looked at him from a saddle. This guy is full of it. What? Leave me alone. I just want to make saddles. Remember, I just come from Germany, totally ignorant.
Okay,
I thought
so
I owned the
you're
world.
saying that a woman's like female health, her bladder health, her kidney health,
Yes.
her female parts health,
Ligaments, joints.
can all be affected by the
Yeah.
way that her saddle, the way that her saddle fits her.
And also little boys, when they ride in the wrong saddle. And that part when they're, I'm sorry, I don't know else how to say it.
Yeah,
His parts don't drop at a certain age.
sure.
It's a problem. So when you sit on top, it's a problem. So if you don't sit as a little boy on the proper saddle,
It could cause it actually can cause trauma.
100%, right? And then their testicles will not drop. So these are words out of a book written by Dr. James Warson. This is not something I'm pulling out of my nose.
Yeah.
But this changed my saddle making life because as a rider, I never had problems. But when I think back what I did to my poor students, I'm ashamed. But you said something beautiful, and that is not going to be my excuse. But I said it too. I didn't know.
You do the best you can with what you know until you know better, and then you do better.
So when the industry changes the demand of female riders, go in a tack shop.
Yeah. How many women do you see?
How
in
many breeches do you find for a guy?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
As a guy, good luck finding good apparel in a tack shop because the clothing industry has understood. But if I make now jeans, one side of the jeans is for the male and one side for the jeans is for the female. So I make a pair of jeans that fits both genders. Nobody will be happy. And we see this in saddle industry. Right? And so I love that first question. And I'm sorry it's so drawn out.
Oh, please don't be sorry.
But just like it's simple with the pencil to check the horse, get yourself a pair of jeans, sit in it. Can you rock back and forth without hitting the seam? That's all you need.
What a great tip. My brain is blown already. Okay, next question. Wow, I think we kind of covered this already, but what role does education play in empowering riders to take ownership of their horse's comfort and well-being? I mean, that's like the theme of this whole podcast.
That's right. And you said it. I learned so much. My dad would have heard what you said. He would have been so proud of me because as a teacher, we want our children or our students to learn. What's the point of teaching somebody riding lessons if he don't get it or she doesn't get it? We all have learned that. If somebody's hungry, you can give him a fish or
we can teach him how to fish.
We can teach him how to fish. Imagine we as certified saddle fitters, saddle ergonomists, equine ergonomists, whatever you're going to call yourself out there, teach your client the pen trick. And there is 14 tricks and you do it in less than 3 minutes.
Is there 14 tricks?
14 tricks you can do in a couple of minutes. So you can drive a car, you learn to drive a license, and when you say, oh, that needle goes to empty, you're not going to wait until you go, bup, motor stops on 75.
Yeah.
You want to find a gas station.
Yeah.
So if one of those 14 tricks, something doesn't fit anymore, your horse has changed. Right? And if your horse changed, don't wait until you get the white hair. Don't wait until he stumbles. Don't wait until you're ridden on a horse inverted till you need to get the injection. Sure, the injections are fast and easy and you can go on again.
But it's also going to be something that's going to be recurring because if you're not addressing
you can only do it so much and then it's game over.
Yeah, totally.
Right? So if you don't want to lose your hard horse, right? So check your gas needle. So do those 14 checks. So education is key. And it was great that you said you learned so much about your horse's back.
Yes.
Right? And each time you get your saddle fitted, just like each time somebody bridled my horse, guess what? The day came and I knew how to bridle my horse. Imagine people learn those 14 trigger points on the horse's back, know the steps, way less injury.
Okay, we're going to have to do something about that, you and I think. You heard it here first, everybody. We're going to do something about that. Okay, next question. Why are so many saddles still designed for male anatomy? And what does a gender appropriate saddle do differently? Okay, well, we already touched on that. But
Mhm.
why are so many saddles still designed for male parts and not female
Men
parts?
make saddles for men since thousands of years. And in all my saddle making history, we see very, very few women who work in saddleries. We do have women now.
Mm.
As a matter of fact, in Germany, we had in 1978 the first female saddle maker in 1978.
Wow, that's not that long ago.
That's right. But where I'm going with this is it's a very, you use a lot of finger strength. And most saddlers don't last long because of arthritis. So if you look at my knuckle fingers here.
So you look like you have some well-used hands there.
So it's very hard on your body. I'm not saying women can't do it. Of course they can do it. But how did I learn this trait? From my master.
Yes.
And what did I ask him? Why do we put that crotch divider there? Because the man needs the freedom. Makes sense. Did I ever put 2 and 2 together? Did I ever thought, oh, maybe that's why my sister quit riding, who was a way better rider than my brother and I? We were lucky because we got her horses. But like you said, she was in 13, 14, says, Mommy, that hurts. I don't want to ride horses anymore. So where I'm going with this is when a trait gets taught by men for men,
yeah,
and nobody asks the question,
yeah,
and we don't have, like I had, gynecologists coming in and demanding to take a butt cast.
But why did they demand? Because there was a pain, like you said.
Yes.
Like there was so much discomfort that someone said, enough.
Yeah.
But it needs to, you're right. As a species, that's one of our greatest flaws is we're very bad at prevention. Yeah. We're very good at reaction. We're very bad at prevention because it doesn't give us that, I think it's chemical. I think it just doesn't give us that dopamine hit in the same way.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
You know how you looked at these 2 different trees and you says, wow, I can't believe what I'm seeing here. It's so logical, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
well, it's also easier to look at the tree without the saddle on it.
Yes.
It's harder to see the shape difference when you look at the saddle, but when you strip away the leather and you strip away all the material and you look at the basis of the tree, it's very obvious the difference.
You know what you just said?
What?
It reminded me of my story when this gynecologist came to me and says, you got to strip the pants and you got to strip everything down. He says, I can't strip my customers. No, not like that, he says. No, I'm not going to buy an x-ray machine either. No, do what my buddy does. He's a dentist. He takes a mold.
Oh.
What are you saying? So he made me come up with a butt mold. We have a room in Ontario, Canada. We call it our butt museum. So what you have, yes, we had the entire U.S. team riders, dressage riders, and the entire Canadian dressage riders butt molded. And we have over 100 right now. So when you come in there, not saddle maker, you're not a doctor. You're just, as a Joe average, come in and you see immediately 2 shapes. Doesn't matter how skinny, how tall, how small, how round. 2 shapes. One is like a V. One is like an L. Came like as clear as black and white.
Wow.
And that's what I said when I saw it. And then my light bulb finally went open in my head.
Yeah.
And I said, we got to do something. And that's when I made this a patent. And
good for you.
That was my first patent, 1996. Yes.
Wow.
That's how everything started.
To everyone who's listening, I don't know about you, but my brain is like blown open. I
don't know if I answered the question there, but education is key and learning. I learned from the gynecologist and I said, well, maybe it's time to go with the time.
I know that so everyone is watching, you guys are all going to have seen in the wide shot, like you're going to see, but maybe because I'm closer to the trees, I'm going to describe, and for everyone who's driving or everyone who's walking or doing barn chores right now and you're listening to this podcast, I want to describe to you the difference between the 2 trees. So when I see a tree made for a man, the shape of the tree is more like a hill.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a really simple hill. When I look at the tree made for the woman, it's like a bridge. That's very different.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to everyone who isn't able to watch this video, you're going to watch it later. I want you to hear me when I say like the difference is simple but dramatic.
Yeah.
It's the difference between a hill, like the hill that you run over, it's very, very specific in shape. And the tree that is built for a woman is very distinctly, there's a bridge.
Mm-hmm.
it's flat on the
Yeah.
top. It's not rounded.
Yeah.
And I think that is such an important part of our body. It's also such an important contact point for us on the horse.
100%.
And if the foundation of your contact in the saddle is physically uncomfortable,
Mhm.
how can you become a better rider?
Yeah, you observe, you somehow deform your body. A gynecologist described it like in your crotch area, the males is like a rooftop,
Yes.
like a pointy rooftop.
Yes.
And for the female, it's like an igloo roof with a collapsed roof in the center.
Exactly. Yeah, that's an even better description.
Yeah. So, and I was listening and says, yeah, that's how it looks. you
Yeah.
know?
Those are two very different structures.
Exactly.
Extremely different structures.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah, it's I also it reminds me of when I went to university, I had never done anything but horses. I'd always done horses. And I thought, oh, what a cool opportunity. I'm going to, do a bit of like yoga teacher training. And I was just really interested in yoga, and it was something I'd never really done before. And the father of the guru, the guy who ran the yoga teacher training school, him and I were talking one time, and he goes, oh, what's your sport background or whatever? And he said, I said, oh, I'm a rider. Like, I ride horses. And he said, oh, wonderful sport, terrible for the body, terrible for the body. And I never heard that before. I thought, really? And he goes, oh, you guys contort your bodies and also it's so unnatural. And I was thinking, well, I don't know. I mean, I thought to myself, well, if you ever ride your horse bareback on the beach, like at Liberty, I mean, that feels pretty natural to me. But I think this conversation reminds me of how many people in their lives have chronically, because we do this is not a sport we just do once or twice a week. Most of us are doing this like 5-6 times a week throughout our entire life. So what I think now I understand what he was saying is that most of us are, especially most of us women, are riding in saddles that are designed for men, and we're having to contort our bodies even more. And I mean, gosh, when you think about even the psychology of as a woman, many of us are taught, many of us are trained to, adjust, to conform, to just, to shut up and listen, or just follow, don't, there's so much of the culture that is changing. But I think has there even been room for children as they're growing up in saddles to say, like, this actually physically doesn't feel comfortable?
What I think really resonates with a lot of our listeners here is anybody who ever has gone to a therapeutic riding school and see these kids or adults who are paralyzed on a horse, they're in tears because a horse moves like a human, diagonal. And when you sit on the horse and that motion in the pelvis signals that spiral sending through the nervous system, through the brain, I'm walking, oh my God, I'm walking.
Yeah.
So if you look at, and I have taught this, and I've been on 5 continents on this planet more than 5 times each time, and I've seen riders who have ridden from young stage to their later age. I have seen people who somehow managed it to ride. And I have also seen the reports that the majority of L4, L5 disc surgeries are women. I don't know any guy who had back surgery because of horseback riders. Here is exactly the point from what you just said. If your pelvis is aligned, the way you're standing, walking, whatever, your body on the horse gets a very good exercise, what makes you live longer, and what makes you very, very fit because you use your core.
Totally.
If you use your core,
yeah,
and you strengthen your core,
yeah,
the distance from your solar plexus to your pubic symphysis shortens.
Yes.
Not if you have a saddle what hits you and bites you in the crotch or doesn't fit your thighs,
yes,
or your hip socket.
Then you're going backwards.
Then the back gets tight.
Because
it gets tight because your disc wants to slip.
Yes.
So again, I'm reusing words which is published and written in books by gynecologists, back surgeon, even as far as neurological surgeons. So when we have seen all this, that riding is very healthy for our body, as long as you don't contort yourself.
And I have seen that, and I want to completely validate and agree with you on that. Is I share that story about the yoga gentleman who shared his opinion about riding,
Mm-hmm.
but there's so much scientific research out there to show how physically healthy and how good riding is for us. It's also a super dynamic sport. It's also really good neurologically. And so what we'll do is we'll be sure to include in the show notes some of these papers that you're referencing, because I think there's some of our listeners are going to really want to check them out. But I wholeheartedly believe, and I see there's a lot of science to back that up, that riding as a sport or as a hobby or as a lifestyle choice can be very physically healthy for us, but we have to be, again, like laying the foundation of this house,
Absolutely.
laying the foundation correctly.
Beautiful
Otherwise,
said.
it can actually be detrimental to our health.
Nobody does it with shoes, with the horseshoes, right? If their shoes, the metal doesn't fit.
Yes.
Nobody does it with the bits.
Yes.
But why do we do it with a metal reinforced saddle tree?
Yeah.
What goes into our skeleton?
Yeah.
So I hope this will help a lot of listeners.
I think it will. I honestly, Jochen, it's like I can't believe that I'm alone in some of the, like, I've been ignorant to a lot of this, and I've competed at a super high level, and I've competed all over the world. I've ridden with tremendous riders with tremendous knowledge in multiple countries, and I have an educational platform we produce with top Olympic riders all over the world. And you are telling me things that I have never heard before.
Yes.
So I don't think that our listeners are alone in feeling like, wow, I didn't know that. Because, hey guys, like, I'm the first to say, like, I didn't know some of this stuff.
And I also know that you're traveling all around North America to do
Yes.
these podcasts. And I understand you're going to Texas soon.
Yes.
And I have a great story there, because the first time I've been on this huge Western horse show, this guy who just won a massive buckle comes and says, "What's this Western saddles for women?" And he gave me a hard time. And I showed him all the books and the papers. And he just like, poop, all the women there need to try harder.
Oh, wow.
And then I said, okay, he's not listening. He's one of the older guys, you know. And I said, okay, I'm trying a different approach. He says, I notice everybody wears the same jeans. What are those? I know them well. They were Wranglers, right?
Yeah.
But I asked him, he says, well, you're a little dumb guy. They're Wranglers, everybody knows that. I says, okay, but what I really needed to know, is this female or male Wranglers? Are you wearing female jeans or male jeans? Well, you're pretty clever. That's how long it took.
Yeah, so simple.
Right? So simple. It says, would you get your buckle when you ride in jeans what doesn't fit your anatomy?
Yeah.
And this is just soft parts. You don't be such a baby.
Cool.
I had nothing to lose. He was already
That's amazing.
annoying me, but so
That's amazing.
But he came around by an analogy like that. And I hope that many riders don't have to be too much in pain to just give it a shot.
You know, Saddlefit is something we talk about all the time. But even still, maybe we don't fully grasp just how important it is. Research shows that the wrong saddle fit can restrict a horse's movement, create tension, and over time, even lead to injury. For years, I've tried to find that perfect saddle, something that would help my mare relax and stay sound. But after so many tries, I started to question if it was even possible. Horses' bodies change. Humans' bodies change. Maybe when it comes to saddles, good enough is all any of us can hope for. Then a friend introduced me to Schleese. I'll be honest, I was hesitant. I'd been let down before, and a saddle is a big investment. But they offered something I hadn't seen, an 80-point professional saddle fit evaluation for both English and Western saddles. And when they fitted my saddle, everything felt different. Their saddles offer an orthopedic fit and are infinitely adjustable for both horse and rider. So you never have to worry about having a saddle that doesn't fit 6 months later or having different saddles for different horses. There's a few other Schleese features that have been a game changer for us too. The seat pad adjustments are a huge help, letting me easily add or change pads for a longer multi-day ride versus an arena ride. I love the stirrup placement adjustment, especially as an English rider riding Western, and I really appreciate how lightweight these saddles are. Their modern, light design makes all the difference on this long road trip with so many stops. Right from that first ride, my horse lady, she moved like she'd been waiting for this. In that moment, I understood what I'd been searching for all along. A saddle that didn't just fit, but empowered us to grow together. If you're ready to take that next step on your saddle fitting journey, book your free consultation with Schleese today. Go to schleese.com/bookconsult Noëlle Floyd or visit schleese.com to learn more. That's SCHLEESE.com.
Okay, let's stay at the bottom.
All right,
here.
let's see if I have another cool question.
What's the difference between a Western saddle tree and an English saddle tree? Or is there a difference? And if so, why is there a difference?
Okay. So the first saddles were always built based on two bars sitting on the left and right side of the horse's spine.
Okay.
So a Western saddle tree has wide bars. Think about them as 4 inches apart, and the bars are 4.5 inches wide.
Okay.
In English has bars too, but those bars are no more than 1.5 inches, if that, and their curve very narrow between the upper inner thigh of the rider. So the English tree has much narrower bars, but have the same purpose like a Western tree, to bridge the withers, the wither cup where the stallion bites, and the spine, what has 6 spinal nerves, what creates all kinds of havoc, to put the contact on the horse's muscle, which is very, very thick. The longest muscle, longissimus dorsi. On your spine, my spine, we have one sits very close to the middle bone we can feel on our spine or horse spine, called the multifidus, gives the spine the strength. So we don't want to hit the spinal nerves or that muscle.
That muscle that runs along the spine is the longest spine in the
Longest muscle.
Longest muscle in the horse's body.
Yeah, it attaches to the bottom 4 vertebrae of the neck, goes all the way underneath the shoulder blade to the top part of the pelvis.
Wow.
And it's as thick as 4 to 4.5 inches, and it's wide 4 to 4.5.
Wow. Okay. So you can imagine that if there's a pressure point in the way that a saddle fits, let's say at the back, more towards like the end of the saddle, that could affect the comfort near like the cervical
100%.
Spine, or it could, you know what I mean? Like you can understand how they're all connected.
Yes. And one of the spots, remember you talked about the bucking reflex points?
Yes.
Okay, so one of the spots, we call them bucking reflex points.
Okay.
Here I have this little horse.
Yeah.
And you can see in the soldier, they're called the ring of lights. So this ring of lights is how when the sun sometimes hits the flank, you can see a nice ring of lights.
Really?
Look for that next time
I
on the
will.
coat.
Yeah.
Or you can see how the hair comes together in the flank.
Yes.
They call it the rain line. So when the horse gets rained on it, the rain goes down that line.
Yes.
And the old soldier said, in front of the ring of lights,
Yes.
on the rain line, and at the end of the mane, is where my contact on top of the ribs should be.
Oh, wow.
It's very simple, because how am I going to teach my entire troop? I have all these soldiers to learn about saddle fitting. We have to make it
Simple.
bulletproof and simple.
Yeah, and simple and straightforward and visual.
So now, look, this is the first lumbar. Look how thin this is. Here's the pen, just to get you an idea.
Wow.
Look how thin this is.
So for everyone who's not watching this and who's listening to this,
touch it. How thin you think that is?
It's like, it's big. It's thicker than paper, but not as thick as cardboard.
Like 4 or 5 sheets of paper, maybe?
Yeah, maybe.
So in order for you not to see how brittle it is, how pieces broke off.
Yeah.
So in order to not break that off, the horse just gets really tight in the lumbar. And sometimes you see behind the saddle a little bump.
Yeah.
Overdeveloping. In the old times, he used to call it helmeting. The muscle gets knotted up in the lumbar area.
Yes.
Very hard to ride a horse with. But they try to protect this. Now, if I push on that, grape pressure, the horse will pace, tilt, gait, but not canter. Or if you go to lemon pressure, from grape to lemon, he will buck. So I put a bucking strap all around, and we'll put pressure on that horse goes nuts. So if I have a horse that bucks a lot and jumping, or goes a nasty in any kind of a saddle, you might put too much pressure on that. That's a reflex point. I can really aggravate a mare who is in season.
Yeah.
Ovaries are very clear.
Yeah.
If your horse starts peeing while you ride, or you're taking the saddle off, he pees.
Yeah.
You're attaching and aggravating the kidneys, which are right underneath. They're hanging via muscles
Oh.
from that first bone.
And I've heard old cowboys talk about you have to be really careful where that saddle sits at the back of the back of
Right.
their back, because you can sit right on
Right.
top of their kidney.
Let me show you one more client, because
This is like blowing my brain.
this is
Everyone's going to listen to this podcast and just Noëlle's brain was officially blown.
So many people say the Western tree or the Western side is so much longer. How come they don't hurt so much the horses?
Yeah.
Well, this front part here,
Yeah.
not meant to sit on it. This is for my gun, my water, my rope, whatever I want
Yes,
to touch. This
yes.
flares.
Yes.
So we call it the front flare.
yes.
The same exists in the back.
Yes.
It's not meant to put pressure. I put my tent, my kitchen, my bags, my whatever.
Yeah.
So that's how it's been done for the packing saddle, army saddle.
Yes.
So if you look at the bars on this tree, see how wide they are?
Yes.
Now compare them to...
That was actually one of the biggest things I visually had to get used to, was having
Yes.
it growing up in English saddles,
Yeah.
and then having Western saddles now, how much different where the bar structure was.
You can see how narrow those are
Yes.
compared to that, right?
Yes. Yes.
So,
So does that mean that we have to be even more careful with English saddles?
yes, because your pounds per square inch is higher than on the Western saddle.
Ah.
Okay, and I'm a science nerd. You know, I always was passionate about it. And this is now 11 years ago, where
Mhm.
they can say at a certain amount of pressure, okay, it gets numb. But at a certain amount of pressure, the blood doesn't go through the muscle. So it doesn't get the nutrition or the oxygen. So it atrophies.
And that's why we're seeing atrophied backs,
That's right.
even at the Olympic level.
I know.
And it was hugely controversial. There was a lot of photos circulated around during the Paris Olympics
Mhm.
on social media, especially by physiotherapists and biomechanical professionals
Mhm.
who were taking photos of horses at jogs going, how do we have atrophied backs at the Olympic level?
It is like in any sport.
Right.
The sponsorship is massive.
Yes. It's a very important part of the economy of our industry.
100%. And
Yeah.
I wear the T-shirt. I've been there. I've done that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I didn't even listen to the sign. Finally, I got that saddle I always wanted to be sponsored in.
Mm.
And my horse got worse. All right. And why could I not put two and two together? In today, we make fancy pads, shock absorption, foams, and you name it. But in the end of the day, it all comes down to physiology.
Well, and when you talk about this, so I want to talk about the connection here too. When you talked about this, you call it, so what's this spot again? That
This
you
is
spoke,
the ring of light.
the ring of light.
Everybody can see on the horse.
Yeah.
Right?
And you talked about it called the bucking
Reflex
the
points.
bucking reflex point. So I'm thinking too of all those people out there who take a horse to, a cowboy, or they take a horse to a horse behaviorist and said, like, my horse keeps bucking, you got to stop this horse bucks all the time. Well, what if, okay, so they're thinking it's a behavioral problem, but what if it's not a behavioral problem? What if the saddle that they're being ridden in is pushing on the bucking reflex point consistently over time?
I always been told that you cannot train pain, but you can inflict higher pain to make that pain go away. So what I'm saying is horse abuse. And unfortunately, our body and the horse's body can focus only on one piece of pain.
At one time.
We all had it before. We had a huge infection in the foot. So that got away. I can finally walk again. I never knew my knee hurt. I always had knee pain, but my body was focusing on the infection on my foot. Once the foot was healed, my knee now started flaring up because my brain, nervous system goes to the higher point.
Yes.
So,
and this happens a lot. Like I remember my dad had partial hip replacement.
yes.
And he was like, oh, the arthritis in my hips is gone. And then all of a sudden he was like, oh, my knees hurt.
There you go. See, and this is the same with horses. So when we have all these experts, let me reiterate, I'm definitely not an expert. I'm just a nosy kid who surrounded himself by a lot of horse experts who study this and know the biomechanics, physiology. And they say, stay away from those trigger points. And as I make saddles and I hear these advice, why would I need to train pain if I can't shoe a horse, right? I don't build bits. but I build saddles. And if I know this creates pain, all I need to know how to stay around it.
Mm-hmm.
So now I can train, hopefully, what I'm looking for, to jump, to be an endurance rider, to be a
Wow.
pleasure rider.
Yeah.
So if you tell me I made the world's best shoes, oh, Jochen, I really like you and I love your shoes, but you're going to say to your husband, we're not going there anymore because every time I buy shoes, I have blood blisters.
Yeah.
You're not come back, right? But the horse doesn't have a choice.
The horse can tell you.
Right? If I just throw enough money at your place and say so-and-so rides in it and so-and-so, maybe I need to have that saddle because everybody else gets the money.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and we haven't even talked about the fact that many trainers out there are partnered with saddles. I've ridden for and with trainers who were partnered with a very specific saddle company, and they get a commission if their clients buy that saddle.
Here's the funny part. I can only speak for the guys. So we sometimes set very much in the way. So this guy tried for the French Olympics, last Olympics in France.
Yeah.
His wife got a female saddle.
Mm.
Her scores in dressage went so fast, so high up that before the Olympics, he switched. He got 60,000 euros from his sponsors, 5 saddles free,
Mm-hmm.
and he rode in the saddle he bought in the Olympics 3 weeks earlier, bought that saddle.
Wow.
Right? So as a guy, for me, I feel what my horse does.
Yes.
Does my ego get stroked? And sorry guys if I offend you here, but
Yeah.
we're pretty simple creatures.
Yes.
Where women, on the other hand, are much more emotional and they sense faster things, I find, in this industry,
Mm.
and they listen faster to the horse. But if it wouldn't be for the wife riding first that saddle and seeing the result in the score, he would never gotten that saddle a chance.
Wow.
He would have stick in the saddle. He was sponsored and got paid so much money for it. So that's an interesting story when you just said.
Super interesting. Yeah. I can't tell you how important this podcast feels, Jochen.
Yeah.
What's one critical thing you wish every rider knew about Saddlefit that would immediately improve their partnership?
When I go to the barn, I'll give you an example first. And I want to get my horse out of the barn. And I need to open the barn door. But the barn door slides open. It doesn't open like a normal door.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's very important that the barn door lines up with the wall. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
What happens if the barn door doesn't line up?
Oh, I mean, if there's so many things, weather, like you could draft. I mean, it wouldn't
You
open.
can't open it, right?
Yeah.
So what if I
mean,
say,
yeah, simple.
what
it
if you
wouldn't
say,
open.
I'm pretty smart, I don't care if it lines up, let me get a tractor, put a chain on it and drag that door open. What will happen?
Oh, wow. You'd break it.
You break the door or you really pull a number, right?
Yeah.
So you can force it open. So now think about this. Can you make this noise with your hand?
Yeah.
So pretend one of the hands is the shoulder blade of the horse. And on the end of the shoulder blade, 4-inch,
Yeah.
it's the same stuff your nose and ears are made of, cartilage.
Oh, wow.
So here's the shoulder blade.
Yeah.
Okay. So you see this is the spine of the shoulder.
Yes.
Here's the top of the shoulder, and my fingers simulate the cartilage.
Yes. So which is inside the body?
This is inside.
That's inside the body. That's
so
outside.
here's another shoulder blade. So when the horse gets ridden, these
Yeah.
gets wider.
Ah.
And they change. You see the angle here?
Yes. So there's movement in the shoulder blade,
Yes.
of course, but you're saying that there's movement in the shoulder blade.
This way. And I'll show you why. You see this roundness here?
Yes.
This is what's called a ball joint. Like your elbow and your knees, just go back and forth.
Oh.
But your hip
Yeah.
and your shoulder has a ball joint. So
Yes.
this can go this way. Okay?
Whoa. Yeah.
So now, if the barn door analogy, here's the wall, here's the door.
Mm-hmm.
If they line up, it opens.
Yes.
What if it doesn't line up?
Oh, God.
Okay. So it bends the cartilage over.
Yeah.
If I go with one what is steeper,
Yeah.
I make the horse trip.
That's that. Yeah. And it's funny because I know this is possible, but when you see it that simply, it just, you can my whole body just went, oh my God, that was so painful.
So I met a surgeon, and she is a Grand Prix show jumper, and she practiced in United Emirates, UK, in Europe, and in North America.
Yeah.
But she fell in love with a South African. She lives in South Africa
Oh,
now.
neat.
And she does a lot of dissections. And she gave me this. And she says, you see this here? I says, yeah. Bone only grows bone when it's under attack.
Yes, I know that. Yeah.
Right? So this is abnormal. So only what could do that is from a barn door which did not line up
Oh, wow.
with the wall. In other words, if the angle of the tree does not line up. Like on our Western saddles, we developed a Western saddle where the bars are split.
Yeah.
So the trainers, the riders,
Yeah.
or the riders with the saddle fitters can
Adjust.
not only have the width of the
Yes.
bar, also have the angle.
Yes.
Does that make sense so far?
Yes. Perfect. Makes sense.
So on English saddles, your jumping, your stirrup leather is attached to this metal. Every
Yes.
time you jump, there's a lot of force.
Yeah.
So we now developed not only a saddle where you can adjust the angles while it's on the horse.
Mm-hmm.
You see those screws there?
Mm-hmm.
Because we haven't even talked about right-handed and left-handed people. We haven't even talked about why the mane is on 7 horses on the
And
right.
so this is okay. So myth busting 101 here.
Yes.
So like we have like people are left-handed and right-handed. Horses are also left-handed and right-handed.
Absolutely.
Right. That's a really important fact that I only recently learned.
Yeah. And what I like to bring back to the question, but what's one of the most important part?
Yes.
The barn door got to open easy.
Mm.
And here's another pen trick. You take this pen and you put it on the widest part of the shoulder, 4 inches below the mane.
Mhm.
Just put it there.
Okay.
Push it there. You will push at this. Oops, I keep hitting the mic. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
You hold the pen on the horse like this.
Yes.
Now you take your saddle and you put that saddle where the D-ring is and you lay it around the panel.
Yeah.
Just hold one pen on the saddle, one on the ankle, on the horse.
Yeah.
If they don't line up, don't open the door. Don't girth it. Don't ride it. Make sure they're aligned.
Okay.
We have so many tripping issues. The farrier will see it. The horse will start landing crooked. You will have all kinds of issues. We have high heel, low heel syndromes. It goes on and on and on.
Well, and I'm thinking of like, it's just such a ripple effect. Like I'm thinking as you're talking, I'm thinking of like horses who are jumping and then, like I've ridden horses. I've seen horses at shows that like they take off after the fence. Well, that could be from a pinching that's happening in the saddle, right? And then we're working them and driving them or whatever because we're like, oh, that can't happen, whatever. And I'm thinking of all the behavioral signs where horses are trying to say, ow, that hurts. And we think it's a behavioral problem, but in fact, it's a pain problem.
Here's an exercise I like you to do, and maybe all our listeners too.
Yeah.
Put your hands like I do in front of your chest.
Okay.
So pretend you're a horse and you jump. Okay.
Yeah.
So now do a jump again, but put your fist beside your chest. You notice how back your shoulder blade came?
Yeah. Like I could probably put a pen between my shoulder blades
So
right now.
Imagine this. If you have a jumping horse and you jump 1.30 meters, in the distance from the chest to the pole,
Yeah.
it's now less because your feet hang here.
Yeah.
Every horse jumps free this way because they don't want to hurt their legs. Because there's nothing much to restrict the shoulder to come back. You felt your shoulders, right?
Yeah.
So I can
But what
show
if-
every show jumper, you clear the pole by a minimum of 4 inches. A minimum. But just let the horse's shoulder to come back. So simple things like that, as an event rider, is life or death. I lost one good friend of mine because the horse landed on him. Because our fences in the cross country don't come down.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? So that's a kind of important thing.
It's life or
If
death.
there is the
Yeah.
feet a little higher away, horses love jumping like that. Right? So once I seen these simple things, my answer to the question is, take 2 pens, put one on the shoulder, one on the saddle, look at 3/4 from angle. Do the line up? Yes. If not, the horse will always jump like this.
Yeah.
If you're right-handed, well, then his left leg will be lower. Right-handed, left leg, and the other way around. You've seen those, right? When they have that little lazy left leg.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's the answer to my question. Line those pencils up like you line the barn doors up. So simple.
Okay, we're going to ask one more question.
Sure.
What are the most common misconceptions or myths riders have about Saddlefit? And how can we move past them?
I had this beautiful mare, and she was tough. She had a lot to say.
And
And
I have one of those.
my professor I just met 3 years ago here in Ocala, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
He said to me, you and I are the same age. When I went to university to become a veterinarian, we were actually told until 1978 horse don't have pain receptors. In 1978. Today, there's many universities who write the pain scale of the horse or the pain scala. So just think about
1978?
1978.
I know that there was, like, historically in medieval times in the Renaissance, religiously, there was fundamental, like, collective belief that animals didn't feel pain.
Yeah.
That was like, but that was steeped in religious belief and all sorts of different things culturally.
Yeah.
I didn't know that in veterinary school.
Yeah.
They did not believe that horses had pain receptors.
Now, I reacted just like you. As I went to veterinary school, I don't challenge a professor who still teaches at the University of Copenhagen,
Yes.
the equestrian industry.
Yes.
That's in Denmark, right? So I'm not questioning, are you telling me a story? Are you pulling my leg or what?
Yeah.
And that information came to me like a freight train just hit me.
Yeah.
How is that possible?
Yeah.
But then I also remember, right? So when I finally we were just riding the European Championship, and that mare, she started to speak louder and louder to me. Says, you know what? She's just a mare.
Yeah.
Every time I girth her, she like swished. She says, just give her a knee.
Yeah.
I said, what do you mean give her a knee? When you girth it up, just lift your knee and kick her in the guts. That's kind of what I was told by these old people, right? Nobody questioned them. You be on the team, you listen what they say, otherwise you're kicked out.
Yeah.
Today, it's kind of like the worst thing you could ever do.
Yeah.
Fortunately, it still happens.
Yes.
As long as we make a lot of money with horses, humans sometimes fall to the greed or to the blindness of money.
Yeah.
But for all listeners here who love their horses more than anything else,
Yes.
would say, what a brutal guy. Right? So once I remember back then what we used to do, and today we know that's clear science. I mean, how much obvious in my jumping saddle, she didn't do anything, but put my dressage saddle on, she was like fire-spitting dragon.
So she's telling you something.
Exactly, right? But I didn't listen. So the biggest myth here is the horse doesn't have, it's Monday, she doesn't like it. Or she doesn't like dressage, that's why she sees the dressages. The horse is a very simple creature. Am I safe? And are you hitting my reflex point or not?
Yeah.
So
am I safe? Am I in pain?
Right. And I don't know. I can't give a good analogy. Maybe any shoes, boots. I'm a skier. No matter how tight, I love the mogul, how tight my boots were. They had to be tight in my foot. My foot couldn't slip, but I could always wiggle my toes.
Yes. Yes. Really important in skiing. If anyone is a skier listening to this, you know how important certain parts of your feet have to move in a ski boot.
To wiggle my toes.
Yes.
In a saddle, the saddle's toes area is the very back of the cantle and the very front of the saddle. In the first, let's cut the saddle in 3 chapters: the front, the middle, and the back.
Okay.
In the middle where you sit, the spinal processes are straight. In the front of the saddle, spinal processes fall back. In the back of the saddle, spinal processes fall forward. So,
explain that to me.
So if you look at this horse here,
Yeah.
you see how these bones fall this way?
Yes.
Then they sit straight.
Yes.
Then they go forward.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So giraffes eat a lot leaves and have very long legs. And the long necks. The food is here.
Yes.
Horses, 17 hours out of 24. 17 hours of 24, the neck is down.
Yes, that's
Food
true.
intake is on the ground. So when the neck goes down, all these bones straighten out. So in saddle making, the one thing you see from the first saddle to this day, they have a slight rock. So let me show you what that means.
Yes.
So the bars, you see how they go up
Let's
here?
put it actually here for everyone who's watching. Yeah.
All right,
great.
so it's hard to say because the saddle is level.
Yeah.
But if this would be a flat spot,
Yeah.
they go up a little bit in the back.
Yes. Yeah.
Go up.
Yeah.
So think about your ski boots. Your toes would be here.
Yes. This is a free space.
And this is a free
Toe
space.
space. I like this analogy for
Right.
ski boots because I feel like a lot of us listening, a lot of us have skied. So
They
you know.
think it needs to be tied here.
Mm.
How's the scapula rotating underneath if it's tight? And when people say, oh, the saddle is moving in the back, I says, yeah, I don't want a saddle when I do post trot what keeps smacking my butt, like clapping me in the butt.
Yeah.
I want a saddle what briefly goes away. So when the horse engages, brings the line, the lower back and the loins up. So the hind leg can come underneath and roll and bring the power forward.
Wow.
If the saddle does not give me the space, the horse will fake it. The first joint, what goes bye-bye? Your SI.
Yes.
But I can
And
kind of
they will also start to flex in the
stifle,
front.
hawk, exactly.
Because if they cannot get safely or comfortably underneath themselves, they'll start to flex in the front. And that's where we start to see behind the vertical. That's where we start to see all this rubber necking. He was talking to me about rubber necking.
Ridiculous.
Like there's all sorts of horses are master, like I find, I always say this, like horses are almost master deflectors, and that they'll take something that's happening over here and they'll try to like
Yes.
compensate
Love it.
for it over there.
Love it.
Right. But then what happens is that I think humans, we get away with a lot of bad behavior and I don't mean, and sometimes it's conscious and sometimes it's unconscious, right?
Yes.
But the horses are trying to they're trying to sort of rebalance things. They're trying to make up for what's happening because that's the only thing that they can do.
Yeah, that's the biggest myth. If the saddle is not giving the space for the horse to come and bring the back up, let's face it, the second the horse is trot, young, mature, Olympic or pleasure horse, the second a horse trot, the horse will have a massive rush of endorphins to tell the predators, I'm not lame. So if you want to see for problem in your saddle, watch the walk. If he doesn't, from the mounting block, steps one hoof imprint over the front hoof imprint, saddle is too tight in the back. And that's the biggest myth.
Okay, you need to wait. Say that again. So if your saddle is incorrectly fitted, you will get on your saddle and you can walk, and like you could do this even in like a freshly
Sand.
dragged arena.
Yes.
Right? Or you could even I would say there's a couple of things that you could look at just to see. But the back foot, say that again.
So the back foot and the front foot will make an imprint.
Yes.
So put yourself, you're standing in front of your horse, you're on that mounting block, you're getting on the horse, you gentle sit in the saddle. So the first 3 steps away from the mounting block, the horse will make marks in the sand.
Yes.
And the mark what the horse made with the front leg in the sand has to be an over track from the hind leg mark.
Has to be an over track?
Yes, instantly. I give you another analogy.
Yeah.
If you know you're standing there and your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your friend says to you, help me unload this heavy pickup truck with horse food.
Yes.
Okay, we got to carry those heavy bags over there.
Yeah.
The second you move off the truck, do you want to do this with your back heavy grain in your lower back and you want to do tiny little mincy steps?
Yeah.
Or do you want to bring your back up?
Yeah.
Get that back as high as you can and then you roll forward a little bit to carry that. Can you visualize how you carry that heavy weight right now?
Yeah, totally.
Where do you think the most weight is going to be? On your hind legs.
Yeah.
Right? You want that power carried. You want that weight on your hind leg carried. You
Well,
do not want it on the lower back. So if your horse wants to mount, get away from the mount with an extra weight on it, which is you now. You are the grain, the bag of grain, right?
Yeah.
He wants the back up. But not if the back is tight off the saddle. Not if your toes can't wiggle in your ski boot. Right? So that's the biggest misconception.
So if someone was watching, so someone said, okay, I've listened to this podcast. I want someone to watch.
Yes.
The back foot needs to reach past the imprint of the front foot when it leaves the ground.
3 steps away from the horse. From the mounting block.
3 steps away from the mounting block. Okay.
Right? So because we have some people that got on the horse and they flump.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he's just balancing
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
landing weight.
Totally.
We have some people who learned how to gentle mount the horse.
And I would say, I would encourage everyone who's listening to this that follow these, follow the instructions. And if you have a question or you have a concern, then get a saddle fitter.
Yeah.
Saddle fitters are affordable.
Yeah.
And get, and look at your reviews. That's a piece, that's a question I have. It's not in the jar, but what would be your advice to people who are then choosing? So they listen to this podcast and they go, okay, I want to get a saddle fitter. I want to make sure I need a double set of eyes to look whether my saddle fits or not. What are some pieces of advice that you would give them about picking the right saddle fitter and knowing whether that person's the right one for them?
Have a friend who can videotape you. All we need to see is a video. A video can tell you so much because we have a lot of people around the world who can never ever afford a saddle fitter or can have somebody come. But we offer what we call our long distance saddle fitting analysis. It's just $49.
Wow.
So with instructions you can take, tell you exactly what to videotape. One of them is we just discussed.
Yeah.
Get on your horse and mount away from the mounting block.
And then you would be able to have an educated individual
I say
watch.
it right there. And then I says, okay, change the girth. Put this pad on it. Do it again.
Okay.
And then I show you. Did I ask you to kick your horse more forward or did the horse go for itself? Oh my God, the horse went by themselves. All I did, I put a little thinner pad on it or bigger, whatever. Right? So my advice is check us out.
Yep.
Schleese.com.
We'll include the link, and we'll include the link in the show notes so that people can do this because that's that's an accessible price point, and that's accessible no matter where you are listening. If you're in a remote part of Canada or remote part of the world, that is something that you have access to.
Absolutely.
Thanks to technology and thanks to being in 2025. Oh man, Jochen, this has been so educational. I mean, I don't know about everybody listening, but I feel so enriched by this experience. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we always wrap up every episode with our rapid fire questions.
Good.
And I've adjusted one question in this because you really focus on horse health. And so I'm really interested in your answer to these questions. If you could read one book to the horse world, what would it be?
Suffering in Silence.
Oh, that was a quick answer.
It's my book.
There you go. Okay. We'll include a link in that one that one.
The reason I use it because it's together with 8 other authors who helped me to make this the whole horse approach.
Oh, amazing.
Not just saying, because I'm a trainer, I write so well and this way you write my book.
Yes.
No, it's because the horse is suffering in silence if we don't work as a team together. I
couldn't agree more. Who do you think is the most iconic horse in history?
I think immediately on my horse.
And that's, many guests have that answer.
Yeah, it's definitely my horse who gives his life for me. So I will never forget him.
What was his name?
Pirate.
Thank you, Pirate. Most undervalued skill as a horse owner?
Trusting your intuition and listen to the horse. We most of the time know something is not right. And we don't trust that the horse is actually telling us. And we can easily adapt it. We just don't have to be so critical about outside influence. Most people here in the heart knows something is not right. I don't know what, but I feel something is not right. Undervalued.
Who is the greatest horse practitioner or horse health mind in history?
Oh my God, that's so unfair. I have a good dozen of people who admire. I learned a lot from it.
Yep.
And one we already talked about. I see him all the time.
Jim Masterson.
Of course, yes.
Shout out to Jim.
Yeah, hey Jim. One of a new fella I value a lot is Aoife. He was on your podcast as well.
Oh, Aoife Simmons.
Yes.
I
really like this guy.
And he's actually he's also an instructor on our platform.
Yes.
Yeah, you can take a lot of fitness.
I totally like it because he's coming from the rider's point of view.
Yes.
I read a book written in the early 1900s by German author Udo Berger. It calls The Rider Forms the Horse. How we develop the horse is up to us. But we can also deform it a lot.
Yeah.
Because of our ego or because of not knowing what my imbalance is. And I value that on Aoife a lot. And then, of course, big respect for Gerd Heuschmann, Dr. Gerd Heuschmann,
Yeah.
who was one of the top veterinarians who actually studied first to be a professional horseback rider.
Oh, cool.
And for him to give up this massive clinic, big money maker, because he says, I didn't go into the equestrian world to inject horses. I'm sick and tired how people train and ride horses to make money. And he went back to his profession and he clinics worldwide. So I have massive respect for him.
Oh, cool.
Barbara Welter-Böller, she taught and still teaches the equine osteopath in Germany.
Osteopathy.
I learned so much in her school, and I was honored to teach a couple of classes there. So I learned there. I mean, the list goes on and on. But
well, I'm really glad you bring up osteopathy, because I think one of the resounding lessons I learned on this road trip that we're on is the importance of osteopathy for horse owners.
Yeah.
It really is one of the greatest gifts we have available to us, and they can tell us so much about our horses.
Yeah. So
those are good answers.
Yes.
Those are good answers.
I feel kind of bad that I didn't mention other people I really admire, but
it's kind of like your Oscar speech. Everyone knows there's someone that gets forgotten, and that's okay. And the last question is mares, stallions, or geldings? Which one?
As I mentioned earlier, the mare I had
Mm-hmm.
was my favorite horse because there was really good bound once I listened to her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gelding is always easy.
Yeah.
But I think the mares have the most to give us. They have incredible intuition. They're harder if you're a competition rider.
Mm-hmm.
Stallions, personally, I wouldn't say I don't have too much experience. I fitted a lot of horses who are stallions.
Mm-hmm.
As a rider myself, not so much.
Yeah.
But I would say there are many mares I can think of who I remember fondly of.
Yeah. Jochen, it was an absolute pleasure.
Same here.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.